in that university are the teachers of that person, right? Or if he has not studied at a proper university, then you ask him, whom did you study with? Who are your teachers? Just like no doctor can graduate without having shuyukh of medicine. The shuyukh of medicine are the professors and PhD and assistants and teachers who teach at the school of medicine. No lawyer can be a lawyer before he studies law with proper people, right? So the ulama, the scholars have told us that whoever learns from books, his knowledge is considered as nil. Why? They said because this knowledge of Islam is completely different from anything else. Why is it completely different? They said because first of all, the language in which these books have been written in is quite different from the language the Arabic language that we use nowadays. Many of the books, traditional books of the deen, have been written centuries ago. Their usage of words is different from our usage of words. Ibn Khaldun, interestingly enough, who lived in the 7th century after the Hijrah, about 700 years ago, he says that the language of his time is completely different from the language in which the Quran was revealed. He says we are using a language that's completely different from Mudar, the tribe of Mudar, in whose language the Quran was revealed. And when I was reading this, I said that must mean that we are very backward. If his language 700 years ago was different from that language in which the Quran was revealed, that means our language is no way similar. We are probably speaking any other language other than Arabic. And secondly, because there are so many terms in the books that need explanation and commentary. And thirdly, because there are issues that we link to the wrong reality. That is why they say that even if someone memorizes, they even said that one of the traditional scholars of the Maliki fiqh memorized the Mudawwana of Imam Suhnun. The Mudawwana of Imam Suhnun is a collection, is a compilation of all the fatwas of Imam Malik. Imam Malik, the one who founded the school, the Maliki school, has given many fatwas during his life. These fatwas were compiled and put together in a book by Imam Suhnun, and it was called Mudawwanat Suhnun. So whoever wants to give a fatwa according to the Maliki madhab, he just needs to look into the Mudawwana of Suhnun, into that book, and memorize it. They said that one of the traditional scholars memorized, committed that to memory. And then he was appointed as a judge. When he sat to judge between people, he couldn't do anything. He couldn't judge. And then he realized that memorizing the book did not benefit him. They said, why? Because no one can give fatwa to the realities of people before he is firstly trained and know the reality. When we sit with our teachers, it's very amazing that we see that they know everything about everything, almost everything about everything. Sometimes in the masjid, when I mention some things related to medicine, for example, to people, they say, how do you know this? You haven't studied that. You are not specialized in medicine. I said, but I need that to issue a fatwa. Sometimes you need some specialist information to issue a fatwa. So the ulama have told us that we have to have a dedicated student. Number two, we have to have a qualified teacher. When I say a qualified teacher, it means someone who has studied full-time at a proper school of knowledge and graduated from that. Someone who has studied under teachers and sat with them for long periods that qualify him to understand the books that we refer to. Someone with whom, when you sit, you realize that this person is an ocean of knowledge. And thirdly, the book. We have to have a book. We cannot just start studying bits and pieces from here and there. In some weekend courses, for example, people just pick bits and pieces from here and there. I remember, for example, some books that you can read as a thaqafa. You read in the Cube or something. People teach that as a proper book of study. And I say we have not studied that. I think what is happening is we have liquidated the process of knowledge to answer the needs of our weak students. So, if the students are weak, we should strengthen them rather than just complying with what they need. So some people are teaching books that you can read in the tube. If you have studied proper knowledge, but because they have not studied proper knowledge, they think that these are the proper books that are to be taught, and they teach it over the weekend. So people have to realize that for knowledge to be proper knowledge, it has to happen through a book. And this book cannot be studied over a weekend or 2 weekends. You cannot read it on your own, but you have to read it with a teacher. And that should take long time. Knowledge takes long time. And finally, methodology. Methodology means that you have to know what to study first and what to study next. That's why they said that in knowledge, we have al-mubtadi, the beginner. And we have al-mutawassit, the intermediate. And we have fawq al-mutawassit, the upper intermediate. And we have al-muntahi, the advanced. And we have someone who is above this. If we have system everywhere, why don't we have system in our life? A problem that we find nowadays is probably a brother or a sister, whether he is a convert or born and raised Muslim, who starts practicing a couple of weeks ago, and then all of a sudden he picks up Sahih al-Bukhari, for instance, and takes out a hadith, and he says, look, this hadith reads like this, that's my dalil. First of all, to him, knowledge is all contained in al-Bukhari. The first thing I tell him is that there are more than 9 books of hadith. In addition to the 6 authentic books, we have Mu'jam al-Tabarani al-Kabir wal-Awsat, we have Musnad al-Firdaus, we have Musnad ibn Abi Dunya, we have Hilyat al-Awliya al-Abi Nu'ayman. We have so many compilations of the books of hadith. You are not telling me that the 7,000 hadiths in al-Bukhari, even when you cross the repeated in al-Bukhari, they come down to 3,000 something. You are not telling me that the 3,000 something hadiths in al-Bukhari cover the whole sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The hadiths that have been narrated in the sunnah of Rasulullah is above million hadiths, 1 million hadiths. So if you know 3,000 or you have access to 3,000, that means that you still have so many hundreds of thousands that you need to know in order to say that I have a dalil or I don't have a dalil. So picking up a book, we did not have access to study al-Bukhari before we memorized the 40 hadiths of Imam al-Nawawi, for example, and go through the explanation of this so many times. In our masjid every Sunday we've been reading the 40 hadiths of Imam al-Nawawi in Arabic, and we're reading the explanation of Imam ibn Hajar al-Haytami on it, which is a thick volume of 700 pages. We have been reading for the past month and a half every Sunday for an hour every day, and we have not finished the introduction. We have not wallahi, we have not finished the introduction. And it's a proper hour in Arabic every week, very heavy knowledge. Every week, very heavy knowledge. And we have not gone beyond. Last week we did thumma amma ba'd. Now to proceed. Last week we finished with thumma amma ba'd. We have not said anything yet. We have not even spoken about the purpose for which the man has written the book. We can spend 1 week explaining Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So people are taking things lightly, and they are going to people who have studied from books, people who claim that they are scholars. Before anyone gives you any piece of knowledge, you have to ask them, where did you study? What are your qualifications? As much as we are keen to ask about the dalil, we should be keen to ask about the qualifications of the people. Why? Because Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, this knowledge is deen. It's not like any other knowledge, it's deen. So because you are learning your deen from someone, you're learning what you are going to practice, what invalidates and what validates your prayer from someone, you have to know where you're taking your deen from. You will not go to a mechanic to get a prescription for your stomach, for example. But people go to engineers and doctors and non-specialists to take their knowledge from. And I say, if someone has not studied properly, it's very disastrous for him to give people knowledge. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and I'm going to conclude with this inshallah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in one of the battles, the Sahaba were consulted by a man who had a wound in his head. He said, can I do tayammum instead of ghusl, instead of full bath? Can I take dry ablution? He said, no, you have to take bath. When the man took the bath, it was very dangerous, he died. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, they killed him, may Allah kill them. Why didn't they ask? The disaster of not knowing is not asking. But when you ask, you have to pick. As much as you pick the good fruit from the shop, you have to pick the good scholars and qualified people for yourself. Inshallah. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.